Everyone says that once a stepmother enters the family, even a biological father can start to feel like a stranger. This stepmother constantly despised the girl born to her husband's former wife, and she pushed all the dirty and exhausting chores onto her. At just 16 years old, Mary had finally reached her breaking point, but the moment she learned to stand up for herself, her father chose to stand on the stepmother's side. The stepmother claimed she could never live peacefully with Mary, and shockingly, the father made a decision: he would send Mary away to live with a friend's family. He declared without hesitation that this was all for Mary's own good. Fortunately, his friend and his daughter Isabel welcomed Mary with warmth and kindness. One day, Isabel's father hosted a gathering of friends, and among them, a strikingly handsome young man caught Mary's attention. Isabel introduced him as Shelley, a brilliantly gifted and unconventional writer, and the very first moment Shelley stepped inside, his eyes were drawn to Mary. During their first conversation, Shelley was captivated by Mary's melancholic aura. As time passed, they found more chances to be around each other, and Mary grew increasingly fascinated by Shelley's talent, leading them to exchange letters frequently. A few months later, Isabel received a letter from her sister Claire, who claimed she was gravely ill and wished for Mary to return home to accompany her in her final days. Without delay, Mary rushed back home, only to discover that Claire was not sick at all. She had simply missed her sister so deeply that she resorted to this deception. When the stepmother heard that Mary had been living comfortably during her stay, jealousy took root in her heart, so she forced Mary to remain at home and made the sisters sell books on the street to earn money for the household. One evening, their father brought a guest home, and Mary's eyes lit up. The visitor was none other than Shelley, the man she had once briefly encountered. At dinner, Shelley spoke passionately about his recent writing and expressed his hope of receiving guidance from Mary's father. As a renowned literary figure, her father suggested that Mary take Shelley to visit their bookstore. Faced with this unexpected reunion, the two young hearts seemed to draw even closer, and they found themselves with endless things to talk about. Mary confided in Shelley about her deepest pain, the loss of her mother, and she even took him to the only place she often visited, standing before her mother's grave where she could feel a faint trace of warmth. To lift Mary's spirits, Shelley did everything he could to display his wit and charm. Having never truly experienced love growing up, Mary quickly fell under Shelley's gentle spell. In a quiet corner of the church, they embraced each other in the name of love. From then on, they began a secret relationship, and Shelley's passion fulfilled every romantic fantasy Mary had ever dreamed of. One day, as Mary and her sister were reading a love poem Shelley had written for her outside their bookstore, a woman suddenly appeared before them. The woman was accompanied by a little girl of about 6 or 7, and Mary initially thought she had mistaken her for someone else, until the woman called her by name.
Miss Godwin, I am Mrs. Shelley, Harriet Shelley, and this is Ianthe, our daughter.
How can I help you, Mrs. Shelley?
I'm searching for my husband.
Well, he's not here. My father works alone today. I cannot help you any further.
Miss Godwin, stay away from Percy. I have not seen him in weeks, but I have heard rumors.
Surely a wife of Mr. Shelley would be impervious to gossip.
Evidently you are a stranger to scandal, Miss Godwin. Did you know I ran away with Percy when I was a girl? Idealism and love give us courage, but they do not prepare you for the sacrifice required to love a man like Percy.
Goodbye, Mrs. Shelley.
Shelley had never mentioned that he was married, and it was only when the stepmother confronted him that he finally admitted he had a wife and child. Mary was utterly devastated by this revelation, but Shelley insisted that he did not love his wife, claiming their relationship was deeply broken. After dinner, Shelley anxiously tried to explain everything, saying that for Mary, he would be willing to give up everything, but Mary refused to believe him. Meanwhile, rumors reached the stepmother, who used Mary's late mother to insult her, something Mary found unbearable. Yet Shelley refused to give up on pursuing Mary, and when she read his heartfelt letter of apology, Mary, who longed to escape her suffocating home, suddenly changed her mind and once again fell into his arms. She decided to cast aside society's judgment and pursue love at any cost. When Mary brought Shelley to her father and begged for his approval, her father was furious, declaring that if she chose Shelley, he would sever all ties with her. That very night, Mary quietly slipped out, taking her sister with her as they fled from that cold and unfeeling home. They believed that freedom was the life they had always wanted. At first, Shelley spent most of his money buying the sisters fine clothes and indulging them in all kinds of pleasures, and they even rented a luxurious apartment. Before long, Mary discovered she was pregnant, and everything seemed almost perfect. When they happened to encounter Shelley's former wife and daughter in the park, a wave of guilt overwhelmed him, and he deliberately avoided facing them. That night, Mary had a disturbing nightmare in which someone took her away, and her unborn child cried endlessly. Startled awake, Mary ran into her sister's room, as if she were still trapped within the nightmare. She did not realize that Shelley had been in her sister's room all along. It was not until dawn approached that Shelley finally returned to Mary's side. The next morning, when Mary came downstairs, she was confronted with the sight of her sister and her lover in an intimate moment. Not only that, several servants suddenly appeared in the house, leaving Mary deeply puzzled. Shelley told her that all of this was meant to take better care of her. That evening, Shelley hosted his friend Samuel, who showed an intense interest in Mary. The very next day, Samuel approached Mary alone, claiming he wanted advice on literature. During their encounter, Samuel behaved in a frivolous manner and even attempted to take advantage of Mary. When Shelley and her sister returned home, they found Mary looking utterly dejected. Mary confronted Shelley, questioning what kind of friends he had made, but Shelley insisted that Samuel was a man of integrity, refusing to believe Mary's accusation. Faced with Shelley's indifference, Mary was overwhelmed with anger. Not long after, Mary gave birth to a beautiful baby girl. During this time, her sister Claire frequently went out to meet a wealthy man named Lord. From his appearance alone, Lord seemed like a complete hypocrite, yet the naive Claire was utterly captivated by him. On a stormy night filled with wind and rain, Mary's daughter burned with a high fever, and Shelley returned home in a panic, hurriedly packing their belongings. He urged Mary and her sister to pack immediately, because he had accumulated a large amount of debt and they had to flee at once. It turned out that all of Shelley's recent expenses had been sustained through heavy borrowing. Shelley showed no concern at all for his sick daughter. Under Shelley's relentless urging, Mary had no choice but to carry her child and run with him through the pouring rain. By the time they found shelter, their daughter's condition had worsened, and she passed away the following day. As a result, Mary fell gravely ill as well. She lay all day in a dark and damp room, often dreaming that her daughter had come back to life. Those visions felt so real, yet every time she woke up, the cradle was empty. From that moment on, no smile ever appeared on her face again. One day, Claire told her that she might be pregnant. Mary was shocked and asked who the father was, and when Claire revealed it was Lord's child, Mary seemed to breathe a quiet sigh of relief. Shelley advised Mary that Claire should write to Lord and ask him to take responsibility, which could also help ease their current hardship. Fortunately, Lord did not refuse. He agreed to let Claire bring her sister and brother-in-law to live in his estate and welcomed them warmly. Upon arriving at Lord's estate, they met a refined and well-mannered doctor named Polidori. But here, they did not feel that Lord truly loved Claire at all. Polidori told Mary that Lord was an extreme admirer of literature and emotionally unstable. Rather than merely extreme, he was in fact a madman, so unrestrained that even his behavior was beyond control, a trait he shared in many ways with Shelley. In such an environment, Mary and her sister had no dignity whatsoever. Watching her husband behave frivolously toward her sister, Mary became numb to it all. In Lord's eyes, Mary held more allure than Claire. He often made inappropriate advances toward Mary right in front of Shelley, yet Shelley showed no strong reaction, until one stormy night, Lord grew tired of Claire and told her so directly.
Is to transcribe them.
How dare you? What right do you have to treat me like this? Your lover?
Claire, you are not my lover. You are a dalliance, a lapse in judgment, a silly little girl.
Devastated, Claire ran out of the estate in tears. When Mary found her, Claire had collapsed in the mud, and Mary tried to persuade her that they had nowhere left to go. Meanwhile, a servant handed Shelley a letter, and after reading it, his limbs went weak. But Claire, who had just endured humiliation, returned to the estate and knocked on Lord's door once again. Mary continued to be haunted by nightmares, with strange and disturbing visions flooding her mind. The next day, Claire fell ill and was too weak to get out of bed for breakfast. Shelley, meanwhile, had spent the entire night drinking alone. When Mary casually said a word to him, Shelley lashed out and hurled insults at her. Unable to tolerate it, Polidori stepped in to defend Mary, but Shelley struck him without hesitation. Mary questioned Shelley.
What's wrong with you?
You think I'm an idiot? Oh, you claim no interest in Hogg, that's all right, but the good doctor... Oh, yes, he's more to your liking, isn't he?
Where were you all night?
I do not have to justify myself to you or to anyone. You have no idea the responsibilities
What
I bear.
responsibilities?
She drowned herself, Mary. She threw herself in the filthy water at Battersea.
Who?
My wife?
When Mary went to check on Claire, Claire told her that Lord still insisted on abandoning her, only willing to take responsibility for the child. After that, Mary silently began packing her belongings. When she went downstairs to say goodbye to Lord, he told her that he had never loved Claire and had never seduced her, claiming that everything had been nothing more than Claire's one-sided affection. With nowhere else to go, they returned once again to that dark and damp rented room. Mary picked up her pen and paper, writing down everything that had happened over the past 2 years. In just 2 years, she had grown up in an instant, yet she was still only an 18-year-old girl. A good childhood heals a lifetime, while a troubled one takes a lifetime to heal. Rather than calling her choices ignorance, they were the result of a long absence of love that led to a rebellion. A month later, Mary completed the work. She hoped Shelley could use his connections to help publish it and earn some money for their living expenses. But when Shelley saw the author's name, he strongly demanded that the work be published under his own name. Mary refused to agree and chose to seek out publishers on her own. However, as a woman, she was rejected again and again. Her publishing plans repeatedly failed, and every manuscript she sent out was returned. With no other options left, Mary turned to Shelley for help. After a night of arguments, they finally decided to print 100 copies anonymously and release them to the market. When Mary's father saw her work through an acquaintance, he seemed to reflect on his years of neglect in both education and care for his daughters. So he purchased all of Mary's books and placed them for sale in his bookstore. When Shelley handed Mary an invitation to promote the new book, waves of emotion stirred within her heart. After much thought, Mary decided to attend. Inside her father's bookstore, Mary saw him passionately introducing her new book to publishers. At that moment, Shelley stepped forward and formally revealed the true author of the work. When Mary heard her own name spoken, all the suffering she had endured finally dissolved in that instant. She realized that it was precisely these experiences that had shaped who she had become. Years later, as Mary walked past her father's bookstore holding the hand of her son with Shelley, her father watched her from afar, and in the most prominent place in the shop, her book was still on display.